So, as we heard, President Biden is promising, quote, better days ahead if we all do our part. In his first primetime address since taking office, he urged Americans to continue wearing masks and social distancing in order to beat what he calls a war against COVID. Another major pillar of that war is the American Rescue Plan, which the president signed into law earlier in the day. The $1.9 trillion, it is one of the largest stimulus plans in U.S. history. So for more on the rescue plan, I want to bring in CBS News Chief Washington correspondent Major Garrett. Major comes to us from our D.C. bureau. Major, very good to see you. It's always good to talk to you about this stuff. So, before the stimulus bill was signed yesterday, this country was making progress. We saw more people getting vaccinated. There's been a drop in new cases and hospitalizations, in people dying. That drop has kind of plateaued, but certainly we heard news of a little bit of job resurgence with the hospitality industry sort of coming back to life. So then the question is, how will this rescue plan bolster, augment what we already see happening in the country? So
primarily, Anne-Marie, with direct money to lots of Americans in a couple of important forms. One, the stimulus checks. Most people have heard about that. $1,400 to 280 million Americans. And as the president said last night, if it's a family of four, that's $5,600. There's also direct benefits if you have children in those families. Any child under 6, $3,600. 6 to 17, $3,000. That tax credit will begin arriving in July. The stimulus checks will be arriving in a week or two, maybe even faster if you file your taxes electronically. Also, if you're unemployed, there's a continuation of the plussed-up unemployment benefits, an extra $300 a week. And significantly, and this is really important for the first time during the pandemic, the first $10,200 of those unemployment benefits will not be subject to federal or state taxes. So that's real money that you can keep and not have to save some to pay your future taxes on those unemployment benefits. A lot of people, Anne-Marie, during the pandemic who'd never been on unemployment before suddenly realized that they owed taxes on that and were caught in the lurch. That's not going to happen now. So those are three very specific ways real money is going to land in American people's pockets very soon. And with that money, they can do one of two things: spend it if they need to, or save it if they want to. Either way, the economy will be buttressed. And to your point, the economy added 330,000 jobs last month. It is on an upswing, but the White House calculates to make sure that upswing is not temporary and is long-lasting, lasts all the way through this year and well into next year. They wanted this large amount of federal dollars to guarantee that economic upswing, and they believe in many respects it will achieve that.
So now we find out that President Biden and the Vice President, they're taking their show on the road in what some are describing as a victory lap. Not just them, but their spouses. I mean, they're really sort of doing kind of a PR push for this bill. So my question is sort of why? Because we know that it has been incredibly popular among voters, whether they were Republicans or Democrats. Is this about educating the public? Is this about counteracting any messaging that is already coming from the Republican Party that did not support this bill? What's the hope here?
It's to reinforce the necessity of this $2 trillion, and it's a ton of money, Anne-Marie, and it comes on top of what the United States Congress during the Trump administration did, which was $4 trillion. So we're now at $6 trillion total allocated to deal with this pandemic. It's a lot of money. And to your underlying point, do we really need it now? If the economy's on the upswing, do we need all this deficit-financed federal fiscal involvement? The president will say, yes, we do. And he'll talk about things such as what I talked about, the stimulus checks, the tax credit, but also money to expedite not only acquisition of, but distribution of vaccines. More testing going on, more contact tracing, more money to fund continued research on vaccines that deal with the variants that we're now seeing. And B.1.1.7 is a very serious variant. Here's a little program note. Tonight on the Takeout on CBSN, I talked to Dr. Michael Osterholm in the University of Minnesota, and he's very, very concerned about B.1.1.7. He says if we reopen too fast and if we're not cautious and we don't keep our guard way up, this could lead us into another series of lockdowns at schools, businesses, and the like. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing that's true about this bill, and I'm not an advocate for it, Anne-Marie, but I've studied it very closely, and I've also been experienced in federal interventions during crises in our country. I've spent 30 years doing this. One thing that's going to be interesting about this bill is, for example, there's $350 billion of federal assistance to state and local governments. It's unrestricted. They can do whatever they want with it. That means mayors and governors are going to be having a lot of press conferences and a lot of ribbon cutting ceremonies about things that they can do and balance their budgets or build a bigger rainy day fund that had to be depleted because of the pandemic. Lots of things are going to play out at the state and local level that are going to reinforce whatever the president and the vice president do. And those kinds of headlines are going to talk about this federal money and what it's doing to address the pandemic, quite separate from whatever the White House does. One last quick point. The president and the vice president are going to conclude this trip next week in Georgia for a very good reason. Without the Democratic victories in those two runoff elections, giving Democrats a very narrow majority, but a workable majority in the United States Senate, this package, the American Rescue Plan, probably takes twice as long to pass and is half the size.
All right. Let me ask you about something else that the president said during last night's address to the nation. So he initially promised 100 million shots, vaccine shots, in his first 100 days. And some people said, oh, you know, you're playing it safe. You're kind of like under-promising so you can over-deliver, because at that point, the country was sort of well on its way to achieving that goal. But last night, he kind of was a little more specific and a little more ambitious. Let's play some of that sound.
If we do all this, if we do our part, if we do this together, by July the 4th, there's a good chance you, your families and friends will be able to get together in your backyard or in your neighborhood and have a cookout or a barbecue and celebrate Independence Day. That doesn't mean large events with lots of people together, but it does mean small groups will be able to get together. After this long, hard year, that will make this Independence Day something truly special.
So, you know, when I woke up in the wee hours of the morning for this shift, and I took a quick look at the headlines, it was, you know, Biden promises July 4th, you'll be able to celebrate. But then when I actually listened to his speech, because I was asleep, you know, I heard a lot of qualifying words. If, we may be able to outside small groups. But still, the takeaway for many people is going to be Independence Day. So how much is riding on this, that he can kind of make things happen by this date, because he put it out there now?
He put it out there, and it's important. And there's a very important date that comes before Independence Day, which is May 1st, when the president said, I'm directing all the states to make sure every adult, every American aged 18 or older is eligible for a vaccine by May 1st. And the quick question is, can the president direct states to do that? Well, I would describe it this way, Anne-Marie. It's a directive that no state can refuse, because what the president is essentially saying is there's going to be enough vaccine. And yes, I'm directing you, but look, if you have the available vaccine and you're not making every adult in your state eligible on May 1st, I'm going to make sure everyone in your state knows about it. So he's basically letting everyone know, come May 1st, you're going to have the vaccine. Build your plans, and you're going to have lots of federal money through the American Rescue Plan to lay down those plans. Get ready for big vaccination efforts starting May 1st for every adult. And as the president said, if that happens, and between now and then, we keep our social distancing, we wash our hands, we wear our masks, we follow the protocols, and don't get too relaxed and celebratory in a sort of early springtime session, then by July 4th, we can have these small gatherings. Back to my interview with Dr. Michael Osterholm on the Takeout Tonight. He said, for vaccinated Americans, the CDC recommendations that came out earlier this week saying you can meet inside, he said those are going to be loosened even more. Vaccinated Americans, when everyone around them in their family is vaccinated, will be allowed to do almost anything very soon. It's the vaccines that are the key. And once they're obtained, and once you've gone through the doses and you're on the 2 weeks on the other side of it, you're going to be in the clear, he believes, and many other scientists agree. So it's all going to be about what is the behavior the American people model between now and May 1st, then get the vaccines, and if all of those things follow the general protocols by July 4th, we should have a recognizable Independence Day.
Yeah, it was definitely a message that the president was trying to get out, that we all have to do our part. We're all playing a role here. The government can do just so much. We've got to pitch in as well. Major, thank you very much.
My pleasure.